As the regional influence of Chaco Canyon began to wane in the 1100s, a new center of power emerged to the north and flourished for 2 centuries. The massive civic complex consisted of multiple great houses, tri-wall structures, T-doors, road segments, and other features linking it back to the canyon from which it emerged. Today, the site is preserved as Aztec Ruins National Monument, where visitors can explore the West Ruin and reconstructed Great Kiva. Featuring both Chaco and later Mesa Verde influence, Aztec stands as a monument to both cultural continuity and change. Join me today as we explore the second capital of the Chaco world. Aztec West, including the Great Kiva, was constructed rather quickly during the first few decades of the 1100s. By now you may be asking, how can we know so precisely when it was built? The answer lies above you. Analysis through dendrochronology cross-references tree ring patterns and roof beams to accurately determine the timber cut dates. To start, cores from living trees with known age and date are compared to increasingly older wood samples with overlapping ring patterns. Once a chronology is built back into time, core samples taken from Pueblo Vigas can have their ring patterns referenced against this, like a barcode, to establish the year they were harvested. In addition to dating, tree ring patterns also give us insight into the local climate, tracking important environmental occurrences such as drought. The construction of Aztec West's Great House was characterized by episodes of rapid development, with the majority of the building completed within a 30-year span. By way of comparison, Pueblo Bonito in Chaco Canyon required nearly 3 centuries to complete. Around 1110, Aztec West underwent its most significant phase of construction, which included the addition of multi-story rooms in the north and east wings. Archaeological evidence suggests that approximately half of the Great House was constructed during this decade. The final major construction effort commenced after 1120, focusing on multi-storied room additions in the West Wing. All this occurred within a 30-year span and constitutes the bulk of construction at Aztec. Subsequent to the initial construction, 2 distinct phases of renovation were undertaken. The McElmo renovation phase in the late 1100s involved demolition of certain rooms in the eastern north wing and southwestern portion of the site, as well as installation of numerous large, blocked-in first-story kivas and plaza-facing rooms. The Mesa Verde renovation phase then occurred in the mid-1200s, where inhabitants further modified the structure by subdividing rooms, incorporated sunken kivas into second-story spaces, and constructed new roofs. The building's functional use may have shifted during this period, with increased habitation and the inclusion of storage facilities, tombs, and middens within individual rooms. During excavation, overlying the earlier Chaco debris and sterile sand layers, archaeologist Earl Morris found pottery, household utensils, and burials characteristic of the classic Mesa Verde period. The large Chaco-type rooms had been made smaller by portioning walls, while doorways had been shortened and narrowed more like the ones at Mesa Verde. Of the 186 burials examined, the majority were concentrated in the West Wing and associated with the later Mesa Verde phase. Only 5 burials were identified as belonging to the earlier Chaco phase. Masonry styles also distinguish the Chaco and Mesa Verde phases here at Aztec West. Core and banded veneer Chaco-style masonry developed during the 9th through 11th centuries. It is characterized by organized, meticulous banded rock layering, chinking stones, and core and veneer masonry. The core consists of roughly shaped pieces of sandstone laid in a mud mortar, which is then faced on both sides with carefully selected and shaped stones to create the veneer. The veneer helped to distribute the weight of the massive walls and allowed the people to build multi-storied buildings. The later Mesa Verde style, named for its prominence in the Mesa Verde cliff dwellings, is characterized by large, breadloaf-shaped stones with less emphasis on layering and chinking. The stone of choice was locally quarried sandstone bricks, selected for abundance and moderate durability. In some areas, cobblestones from the Animas River were used, often for foundation or an alternate building material, especially during repairs and later construction phases. Uniquely, stripes of greywacke, a rare greenish sandstone, appear in some western walls, though their purpose remains unclear. Of course, no matter how alluring the masonry was, it would have all been unseen during habitation of Aztec, plastered over by a layer of adobe. Following long-held assumptions, the most Aztec timbers were cut in the San Juan Mountains 15 miles north and floated down the river. A study of 319 roof beams found that only 5% of these came from the local area, ruling it out as a major source of timbers. Instead, 2/3 of the beams used in Aztec West were predominantly ponderosa pine and originated over 60 miles away in the Chusca Mountains. Timber harvested from the Chusca Mountains may reflect Aztecs' deep cultural connection to Chaco Canyon. Procuring the same timbers used in the great houses at Chaco would have aided in transfer of authority to Aztec, cementing its Chaco identity. By contrast, the majority of beams used in Aztec East were predominantly juniper from the nearby woodlands along the San Juan River. This mid-12th century shift to more local timber might then reflect a post-Chaco movement that spread across the Four Corners, where Mesa Verde culture rose to prominence. The Great Kiva at Aztec Ruins stands as a remarkable example of both prehistoric Pueblo architecture and early 20th century archaeological restoration. Great Kivas are large, circular public architecture, partially subterranean structures with timber roofs resting on 4 pillars. The characteristic interior features include a firebox, floor vaults, and benches, which are arranged symmetrically in relation to a north-south axis, often with strong alignments to astronomical events such as the sun's position at solstices and equinoxes. The Great Kiva at Aztec was built during the Chaco phase between 1100 and 1130. It was then excavated in 1921 and reconstructed by archaeologist Earl Morris in the 1930s. Morris relied on detailed excavation findings and leveraged knowledge of other Great Kivas for the reconstruction. While the authenticity of some aspects have been rightfully challenged, this resulted in the only reconstructed Great Kiva in the Southwest. Situated in the plaza of Aztec West, the Great Kiva is a large circular chamber, about 48 feet in diameter, surrounded at the ground level by 14 arc-shaped rooms. The interior features wall niches, benches, floor vaults, and an elevated firebox. The roof is supported by 4 pillars, each seated on 4 stacked limestone discs to distribute the immense weight, estimated at 90 tons. Architecturally, the Kiva displays bilateral symmetry along the north-south axis, with entrances and antechambers on each side. The inner chamber is accessed via masonry steps and recessed slots, fitted with juniper logs functioning as stairways. The outer 14 rooms include 12 similar chambers and 2 distinct ones, a passage leading directly to the south stairway, and a large alcove on the north side, possibly used as an altar space with its own distinct floor feature. Over time, all doors from the plaza into these peripheral rooms were sealed with masonry, and evidence of white gypsum suggests the rooms may have been painted inside. Morris's excavation revealed that the Kiva was originally roofed, and charred timbers found during the excavation suggested it was burned and subsequently abandoned. The specific T-shaped windows with 5 ladder rungs were perhaps arranged to align with celestial events and allow the solstice sun to illuminate the opposite wall. The wooden rungs, along with the specific 4 limestone slabs which held up the roof pillars, may symbolically correlate to the previous and future worlds from which we emerged from. Another little understood feature of the Great Kivas are the 2 large floor vaults, which are not fire pits. Use as storage or floor drums has been proposed, and the duality has been connected to division of the winter and summer people during migration. Like many features of Aztec ruins, Great Kivas are a thing of the past and no longer used by Pueblo people of today. The proximity to water sources and relatively fertile soil made Aztec a good area for farming. The people also dug irrigation canals that allowed an even larger area of land to be cultivated. One of the most common artifacts found here are manos and metates, traditional tools for processing corn into meal. Farmers in the Four Corners cultivated various types of corn, beans, and squash, all which originated in Mesoamerica between 12 to 6,000 years ago. The climate in the south was more humid, necessitating generations of selection to produce crop varietals suited to the arid conditions of the desert southwest. Around 4,500 years ago, archaeological sites, such as rock shelters in New Mexico, document some of the earliest instances of corn agriculture within the southwest. Subsequently, squash and later beans were also introduced. At the height of Chaco culture, these three crops formed the foundation of Pueblo agriculture. Securing sufficient water for farming has always posed substantial challenges in the Four Corners region. Strategies like dry farming were employed in canyons, arroyos, alluvial fans, and mesa tops, relying chiefly on rainfall, and techniques such as mulching to preserve soil moisture. In proximity to springs, construction of catchment dams and terraces would manage water distribution. Where permanent water sources were available, such as the Animas River near Aztec, flood irrigation was used and interconnected ditches channeled river water into the fields. While we see many features connecting Aztec to Chaco Canyon, there are also shifts in emphasis, such as construction of tri-wall structures, of which Aztec has the highest density in all the southwest. Of the 10 known multi-walled structures, one is found at Pueblo del Arroyo in Chaco Canyon, while 3 are present in Aztec ruins, the most known being the Hubbard site, excavated in 1953. When these buildings were standing, they could perhaps be described as a central tower surrounded by concentric layers, stacked like a wedding cake. The Aztec community was distinguished by its freestanding tri- and quadra-walled circular structures, having the highest concentration of any known site. The central quadra-wall structure, also called Mound F, and 2 tri-walls, align with Aztec East and West's Great Kivas, marking the city's planned architectural layout. While some remain unexcavated, these monuments are considered key evidence of Aztec's distinct regional identity, particularly as tri-wall structures are largely unique to Aztec and its sphere of influence. During Aztec's heyday, its administration bridged both northern and southern regions, establishing Aztec as a political and ceremonial center following Chaco's decline. Ultimately, the prominence of these distinctive tri-wall architectural forms faded with Aztec's collapse and were erased from Pueblo life following the subsequent depopulation of the Four Corners. Another hallmark of Chaco culture seen here at Aztec are presence of T-doors. Regardless of what function they served or represented, T-shaped doors were born out of Chaco Canyon and then migrated north to Aztec ruins and beyond. The doors usually face public spaces, such as the plaza, and their purpose has been widely speculated, from the practical to symbolic. The wider entry could accommodate more elbow room, allowing passage of those carrying backpacks, utility pots, or wearing regalia. One might use the edges as handholds when entering, or shelf space. The lower section could be plugged, preventing entrance of pests, or the upper portion blocked off to retain heat, yet allow fresh air in from below. Symbolically, I have heard many attributed meanings as well, such as T-doors facing specific astronomical alignments, the shape said to resemble the Pueblo hairstyle, or acting as a spiritual doorway. Being associated with great houses and publicly facing, they are also an emblem, denoting the nobility or priestly class who resided inside, asserting political authority as T-door people over the region. The T motif is also present in ceramics, such as the handle of this mug, securing deeper meaning of the logo beyond just practical purposes. Beyond Aztec and the Chaco phenomenon, tea doors were democratized to the north in Mesa Verde, where many residences, both large and small, had them. After the 1300s and emptying of the Four Corners, tea doors moved south into sites like Tonto Cliff Dwellings in Arizona and Gila Cliff Dwellings in New Mexico, but mostly were concentrated at Casas Grandes in northern Chihuahua, Mexico. By this time, the tea symbol seems to have been erased from Pueblo life, but with many subtle remnants, like the tea design cut into tabletas worn at feast days today. When we search for this motif even further south, Mesoamerican tea symbols can be found at sites like Palenque in Chiapas, Mexico. The symbol is also the Mayan hieroglyph Ik, which refers to wind or breath of life. Finally, we find the tea symbol in Peru at places like Aramumuru and the Inca Bridge. While we can never say for certain where these ideas originated from, or how much they are part of convergent evolution, it is worth entertaining their remarkable similarities and speculate. Another architectural feature linking Aztec to Chaco Canyon is presence of corner windows or doors. At Pueblo Bonito, several corner windows were intentionally built into multiple rooms. Two of these face east and view the sunrise on the winter solstice. Since the corner window at Aztec is rather inaccessible, I am unsure if it has been studied thoroughly for any astronomical connection. Chaco construction incorporated the movement of the sun and the moon into architecture, where solar and lunar alignments are a signature feature in these monumental buildings. Here at Aztec, the long, straight back wall of the West Great House marks both the summer and winter solstices. From the west corner of the wall, you can watch the summer solstice sun rise directly up the east corner, and from the east corner, watch the winter solstice sun set down to the west. Beyond architecture, Aztec Ruins was connected to Chaco Canyon by linear ancient roads spanning the landscape, including a 35-mile stretch running north from Chaco Canyon past Salmon Ruins. These roads were typically 30 feet wide with berms and built straight through the difficult terrain. They are thought to have served ceremonial or symbolic roles, such as furnishing pilgrimages. The road segments led to key landmarks, as well as other great houses, connecting the larger Chaco network across the landscape. So what are these great houses exactly? While constructed and inhabited by ancestral Pueblo people, they have many qualifiers distinct from their Pueblo contemporaries, and healthy debate still surrounds their actual purpose. Chaco-style great houses are large multi-storied stone buildings constructed on a formal plan, often with cardinal or astronomical alignment, having core and veneer walls, large rooms, plazas, and usually one or more Great Kivas. Unlike unit pueblos, they show evidence of supporting community-wide activities. The structures were suitable for ceremonial, migratory, and trade centers, where permanent residents may have been very few, high-ranking priests or nobility. Evidence of hierarchy and social stratification attached to great houses contrasts to the more egalitarian Pueblo communities of the time. After the Chaco phase gave way to Mesa Verde-style renovations at Aztec Ruins, this Chaco hierarchy may have collapsed and lost its hold in the Four Corners. Whatever defensive or political service the Chaco Great House administration offered, it was no longer able to sustain its system by the mid-1200s. While there was a departure of Chaco culture and ideas, that doesn't necessitate a mass exodus of people from Aztec ruins during the time. With the Chaco contingent leaving, new ideas from Mesa Verde culture would influence the sustained local population who still enjoyed advantages of their location near the river, yet allowed cultural plasticity and were adaptive to changing times. Potsherds and ceramic artifacts are my usual go-to diagnostic at any ruin site in the Southwest, yet with a cursory inspection, none could be found on the surface of this highly manicured site. The styles of pottery found at Aztec were both imported and manufactured locally, indexing cultural influence of the population over time. After the basket maker era, the earliest ceramic traditions in the Four Corners consisted of utilitarian wares, including plain brown and gray vessels, employed for everyday tasks such as cooking and storage. Artisans crafted these by coiling ropes of clay, stacking them, and pinching them together. The outer surface was smoothed and polished by stone, with a final step of wood firing to harden the clay, enhancing its durability. Later, potters introduced indentations to the vessels. Following these initial ceramics, whiteware first appeared around 600 AD, which included storage jars, bowls, pitchers, ladles, and mugs made from clays that fired to a white color. Utilizing mineral and vegetal pigments, artisans produced black on white pottery by painting designs onto the white clay before firing. Concurrently, southeastern Utah and northeastern Arizona witnessed the emergence of redwares, black on red pottery, fabricated from red clays and adorned with black or dark brown pigment. Decorated pottery rapidly disseminated throughout the Southwest through extensive trade networks, and over the subsequent 700 years, these designs became increasingly elaborate and refined, establishing a chronological framework helpful as another line of evidence for dating archaeological sites. Aztec ruins occupied a relatively late position within the regional pottery chronology, as ceramics predating 1000 AD have not been discovered at the site. Nevertheless, substantial pottery, comprising more than 40 distinct types, indicate that the people of Aztec imported thousands of decorated vessels, most originating from the Mesa Verde region, which included a variety of gray and whiteware, while a smaller quantity of imports came up from Chaco Canyon. Additional whitewares were sourced from the Chusca Valley west of Chaco and the Kayenta region in northeastern Arizona. Although redware ceramics were not produced at Aztec ruins, numerous examples were acquired from the Zuni area. Locally, potters at Aztec ruins were known for producing corrugated graywares and painted whitewares. Aztec black is a distinctive style found exclusively here at Aztec. Manufactured during the 1200s, it represents a local adaptation of technique practiced by the neighboring Mogollon culture in southern New Mexico. The vessels are entirely smudged to a black finish with highly polished surfaces. The method of complete vessel smudging is unique within the San Juan Basin. Research suggests that the size, shape, and coloration of Aztec black vessels implied their use was highly specialized. Uncommon ceramic forms and vessel shapes discovered at the site include animal and human effigies, flat rectangular bowls, cylindrical jars, and spiked pots. Some researchers point out that a particular vessel resembles the seed pod of the datura plant, suggesting possible association with prehistoric datura use. Sacred datura grows along sandy washes in the southwest, and all parts of the plant contain alkaloid poisons that inhibit neurotransmitters used by the parasympathetic nervous system. These drugs relax the muscles and glands controlled by the nervous system and thus have found use as anesthetics and antispasmodics, but if overdosed, can cause delusion, paralysis, and be fatal. The leaves can be steeped to make a tea for a hallucinogenic effect. Datura is still used to this day in certain medicine societies, however not without grave consequences, even for the most devout user. In 1859, geologist Dr. John S. Newberry became the first recorded visitor to Aztec ruins. He found the west ruin in relatively good condition, with some walls reaching 25 feet high and many rooms still intact. From the remains, he concluded that a large population once lived here. Fortunately, Newberry documented much of the site before extensive looting began to occur over the following 50 years. When anthropologist Lewis H. Morgan visited in 1878, he estimated that the settlers had removed about a quarter of the Pueblo's stones for building material. A few years later, a local teacher and students discovered artifacts their predecessors had missed, including a room containing burials and well-preserved objects. However, as others broke into untouched rooms, these artifacts rapidly disappeared. In 1889, the site became safer from looting only after the West Ruin entered private ownership. By 1916, the American Museum of Natural History in New York began sponsoring excavations at Aztec. A 25-year-old Earl H. Morris led the first excavation. He spent 7 seasons excavating and stabilizing the West Ruin, Great Kiva, and parts of the East Ruin there. Later in the 1930s, Morris supervised the reconstruction of the Great Kiva. To preserve the site, Congress designated it Aztec Ruins National Monument, and it was later declared a World Heritage Site in 1987. Earl Morris developed an interest in archaeology early in life, encouraged by his father, who was an avid artifact collector. In 1908, he enrolled at the University of Colorado to study psychology, later joining in excavation at Bandelier National Monument and leaving school in 1912 to work at an excavation in Guatemala. Between 1916 to 1923, Morris directed excavations at Aztec for the American Museum of Natural History. He later worked as the director of excavations for the Carnegie Institution at Chichen Itza in Mexico from 1924 to 29. Between seasons in Mexico, he conducted research at Canyon de Chelly, sites near Shiprock, the Mimbres Valley, and various basket maker sites near Durango, Colorado. His work led to identification of distinct chronological periods in southwestern history. In the early 1930s, Morris supervised restoration projects, including the tower at Mummy Cave, the Great Kiva and Aztec Ruins, and several structures in Mesa Verde, receiving several honors for his work in Southwest and Mesoamerican archaeology. In 1923, Morris married Anne Axtell, who also became a noted archaeologist, artist, and author herself. They had 2 daughters, Elizabeth and Sarah, where Elizabeth followed in her parents' footsteps, studying anthropology at the University of Arizona, and became an archaeologist and professor at Colorado State University. While we know Aztec ruins predates Tenochtitlan and wasn't constructed by Aztec people, there are many links connecting the Southwest to central Mexico and Mesoamerican culture, which justify the name of the site far beyond the reasons for which it was coined. The people of the Aztec community were deeply engaged in long-distance trade networks that reached far beyond the San Juan Basin, forging connections with regions as distant as northern Mexico and areas that would later become part of the Aztec Empire. Their trade with indigenous groups in north-central Mexico is evidenced by the discovery of objects such as copper bells, which were highly valued and used in ceremonial dance. Most strikingly, excavations at Aztec ruins have uncovered macaw remains, including 3 skulls, a complete skeleton, and brilliant colored feathers, demonstrating that these vibrant birds, native to Mexico, were transported alive over hundreds of miles north. The macaw's rare feathers were prized for their beauty and used in important ceremonies. While this sustained exchange with distant regions predates the peak of the Aztec Empire, it highlights a tangible link, bridging the regions economically, connecting Aztec ruins and the future Aztecs themselves. Allow for another moment of speculation and consider the location of Aztlan, the ancestral origin place of Aztec people, from which they journeyed south to establish their empire in Mexico. It is purported to be in northwestern Mexico or the southwestern United States, and some say more specifically in Utah. Aztlan became a symbol of cultural identity for the Chicano movement, which firmly espoused Mexican-American heritage in the 1960s and 70s. In materials produced during the movement, we find strong claims that Aztlan was in fact located in the American Southwest. Beyond physical evidence of Mesoamerican involvement, Pueblo tradition is also full of migration, splitting, and unification of groups and clans, with movements both north and south, connecting to far-spanning regions, including Mexico and beyond. In presenting this information, my intention here is not an exhaustive survey of all possibilities for these phenomenon or any firm conclusion, but rather an invitation to you, the listener, who can follow these threads further with your own unique perspective, research, clan histories, and intuitions, connecting what happened at Aztec ruins to our world today. Aztec invites us to reconsider boundaries of culture and identity, reminding us that heritage is both rooted in place as well as dynamically reimagined across the generations. In this way, it stands as a monument to both continuity and change. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel to join me on our next adventure.